GoForThe2.com. We're into the Week 13 predictions for the college football season. It all starts tonight. Thursday night game, Kansas State travels to Morgantown to take on West Virginia. K-State's won the last two by an average margin of victory of 35.5 points per game, but more importantly, West Virginia's minus 13 overall in turnover margin and minus 12 in turnover margin in Morgantown. They play very sloppy, have gotten away with it up until this point in the season, but you saw back-to-back weeks now against TCU and on the road in Texas. It's sort of caught up with them. I like Kansas State for a couple of reasons. They're methodical. They can rush the football. It's going to be very cold in Morgantown tonight. And when you look at Clint Trickett, more of a pocket passer. He's not mobile like Trev Boykin. More athleticism from Boykin gave K-State's defense trouble. You look at West Virginia's offensive line giving up 24 sacks on the year. I think K-State will be able to get pressure on Trickett, force some turnovers, and you look at their quarterback in Jake Waters, has two big play wide receivers in Tyler Lockett and Curry Sexton, 113 total receptions between them. I like K-State on the road in this matchup to get a convincing road victory over West Virginia. Saturday, very interesting matchup taking place in Neyland Stadium. Missouri travels to Tennessee to take on the Volunteers. Volunteers going to be without their starting linebacker, A.J. Johnson, who's suspended at the moment pending some allegations. To me, it doesn't matter. It's back-to-back road games for Missouri. A lot of pressure on this team to win the SEC East. They need to win out this weekend against Tennessee and the following week at home against a solid Arkansas team. Otherwise, if they drop a game, Georgia gets in. I think this is a tough matchup for Missouri defensively. When you look at Tennessee, Joshua Dobbs putting up very good numbers over the last couple of weeks. He's led that offense to 500 total yards of offense in back-to-back games against Kentucky and 3 weeks ago against South Carolina. Last week, 297 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no INTs. He added another 48 rushing yards and a touchdown. I like Tennessee at home. Offensive line playing very, very well for Butch Jones, and the Volunteers are fighting for a bowl berth. I think they get the victory Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. against Missouri. I think back-to-back road games for the Tigers will hurt them. Let's stay another big matchup, Pac-12, USC, UCLA. UCLA's offensive line giving up 30 sacks on the year. They've really hurt Brett Hundley and those quarterbacks for UCLA. You look at UCLA overall, not playing that well at home. Both of their losses to Utah and Oregon both came in the Rose Bowl. Now this is a rivalry game. You look at USC overall, very opportunistic. They're +9 in turnover margin, have a solid quarterback in Cody Kessler and a solid offensive line. But more importantly, the USC defense playing much, much better over the last few weeks. They're starting to come together. And you look at UCLA's defense not being able to create a lot of pressure this year. A little bit different than last year where they were able to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Only 16 sacks on the year through 10 games. I think that's the difference. USC has speed on the outside with Aguilar, and their running back Boom Allen can get the edge against UCLA. I think that's the difference. Kessler playing very well, playing very clean up until this point in the season, and I like USC on the road to get the upset over UCLA this weekend. Louisville travels to Notre Dame to take on the Fighting Irish. Interesting matchup. Notre Dame dropped that game last week to Northwestern due to turnovers and special teams. You're looking at a very explosive offense in Louisville. They have two big play wide receivers in Eli Rogers and Devontae Parker that could stretch that Notre Dame secondary. They have a solid running back in Michael Dyer and a heavy offensive line. Look for Louisville and Bobby Petrino to rush the football against Notre Dame. That'll open up play action with Rogers and Parker, and I like the speed on defense by Louisville. I think they get the solid upset again. Week number 13 over Notre Dame. Fighting Irish drop back-to-back home games. I don't like the way they're playing. Since that game in MetLife against Syracuse, very sloppy with the football, and that's why Notre Dame's dropping matchups to Arizona State and to Northwestern. Louisville, top 15 defense, very solid in run support and very solid in the secondary. They played toe-to-toe with Florida State, and I think they match up very well with Notre Dame this weekend. I like Louisville to get the upset in South Bend this weekend. Another interesting matchup, Michigan and Maryland. If you're asking me, I think Maryland's starting to wear down from the Big Ten schedule now. They started out very fast, but you saw last week against a lackluster, in my opinion, Michigan State team coming off the Ohio State loss. It was a perfect opportunity for Maryland to take advantage at home. Primetime game, they got worn down by a solid offense and defensive line by Michigan State. They now have to go on the road to Ann Arbor. Michigan not playing well, but they've won back-to-back games now. Bowl, trying to get bowl eligible. I like Michigan in the spot because they're coming off a bye week. Not only that, but Michigan's very solid in run support. I think they'll be able to contain C.J. Brown at the quarterback position, and I think the Wolverines get a solid home victory, playing much better than they were at the start of the year. I think that it's a very conservative attack. They rely on their offensive line to wear down a Maryland defense that's giving up a lot of rushing yards and rush defense. So I think that's the key to this victory for Michigan this coming weekend. Another interesting matchup is Wisconsin and Iowa. Wisconsin, 408 yards by their running back Melvin Gordon, NCAA record in 3 quarters against a solid Nebraska defensive front. Now they go on the road. Both teams are 7-3 to face Iowa. Very difficult place to play. And when you look at Iowa's quarterback, Jake Rudock, starting to come together. They're averaging 236 passing yards per game. And when you look at Wisconsin, has not played that well on road games this year. Both of their losses to LSU and Northwestern have been on the road or on a neutral field site. They're -3 overall in turnover margin and -7 in turnover margin on the road. I like Iowa in the spot. I think they get the upset victory. If they can't get the victory, they'll keep it very, very close. This is a very difficult game for Wisconsin because you look at their quarterback, Joel Stave, really not stretching defenses vertically. Iowa has a very solid defensive front, only giving up about 140 rushing yards per game. They'll look to stuff the box against Melvin Gordon and force Stave to beat him with his arm. I don't think he can do it, and I like Iowa in the spot to get the upset over Wisconsin. Should be a very interesting weekend of college football. Stay with me all season long at GoForThe2.com.